Hey everybody, this used to be called a quickie, but today it's not. 46 nuggets, a lot of news to get through of all the stuff that happened this week. Despite the fact that prices were flat, there's a lot of stuff happening under the surface, and we're going to tackle that. And nowhere, I promise you, can you find this much information in so little time anywhere on the planet. So if you learn something new, just hit the like. That's all I ask. I never ask for likes or subscribes or any of that silly stuff, because I assume you'll do it anyway. Anyway, we'll see if it has an impact. Hopefully not, because I never do it. Anyway, happy Saturday. We're now at 2.25 trillion as the crypto market cap. A lot of people still have a plan for us to hit 10 trillion. That's a 4x from here in this bull run. Not sure if that's possible. ETH down to 3370. What else? Fear and greed tanked to 30 again. It's all over the place. It's very erratic, but the way it's measured is not exactly precise. And Bitcoin is at 61,150 as I speak. Let's go, because it's Saturday and we've got a lot of stuff to do. And of course, none of this is financial advice. Let's go the week for crypto and Bitcoin against Bitcoin, XRP, SOL, ETH, Binance, TON, etc. We will talk a bit about TON coin today. They all beat Bitcoin for the week. Interesting. Could this be the beginning of the altcoin season? I don't think so. Not just quite yet. In terms of the week, Bitcoin ended up 0.4%. We will take that, ladies and gentlemen, as a small win. ETH up 0.12%. You pop out the chat, make sure I can see you all here. And a big thank you, shout out to Beardy Day as well, keeping us all laughing all the time. So that's basically the market. Now, normally I do kind of a Bitcoin daily, and we're just going to roll in a lot of Bitcoin news into this video because it's too much to do 2 videos on a Saturday. Let's go. Bitcoin black hole real fast. Day 118. Raw numbers. We had 4 positive days in a row. And guess who's back? Blackrock is back. Silicon Valley Stoic, thank you for coming. The macro update represents that. Blackrock is red. They had literally been dead. $1 billion in volume every single day. No transactions. Market making games happening. And there we are. Big, nearly $100 million buy on Friday, which is nice. We needed that because Grayscale's still bleeding. And we had our 4th positive day. Also nice. And we had the best day in about 14 days too. So we'll take that as well. And guess who else is buying? And I'll talk a bit about this for a second. This Mr100 fellow. And I know people say, oh, it's an exchange walleted up bit. I said, no. For the 7,000th time, I made an entire video on it. It is not the behavior of a centralized exchange cold wallet, ladies and gentlemen. So please stop pestering me. I'm not going to answer you anymore when you ask that question. All right, let's talk about this though. Mr100 did buy nearly 2,000 Bitcoin in 5 days. In fact, 1,956 Bitcoin. Today, they've already purchased 810 Bitcoin, and I have not checked on the wallet in about the last 30 to 40 minutes, so they could have even bought more. And the total USD invested in 5 days is $118.7 million. That's more than BlackRock and Fidelity and all these other players combined, just to put things in perspective. Mr100's big. All right. Who is Mr100? So I heard lots of rumors, it's a sovereign out of the Middle East, or it's Saudi Arabia, or it's a very rich Asian, Korean, South Korean billionaire or something. We don't know, but there's a lot of weird signs bubbling to the surface, and they have been, but they keep bubbling. And as they keep bubbling, I see more evidence and I get more and more convinced. So this is one of the theories flying around. Michael Dell, he keeps showcasing Bitcoin. And this is from Bitcoin Magazine, and he tweeted very recently, a few times actually, what is the most important thing? AI, Bitcoin, love and relationships, none of the above. He actually rephrased that same question a different way a week or 2 ago. And I remember showcasing it here. But Bitcoin is the answer. 52.6%. And by the way, it's important to note, Michael Dell, he has a kind of a tech following. So it surprised me that AI was not number 1. When I first saw this first version of the survey, I clicked AI because I was thinking, well, that is probably the most important thing that's going to change the universe. Bitcoin will have an impact. But as I covered the other day, and I can't remember who said it, But basically, AI is where you make all the money over the next 5 to 10 years, and Bitcoin is where you store it. Okay? Remember that, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we like disruption here. So, putting this together a little bit, digging into the actual wealth of Michael Dell, sorry. Freudian slip there. He spent $2.6 billion net already in a very short window of time. And he already has $1.55 billion in profit. And he owns, or they own, or Mr100 owns, or Mrs100, 68,500 Bitcoin. That's a quarter of the MicroStrategy bag, by the way. When you put that $2.6 billion of spend into his net worth of $105.4 billion, that's less than 2.5%. And if you have $100 billion, or even if you have $100,000, you want to protect that nest egg. And there is no better way of protecting. Again, like parking your AI earnings into savings. Savings is the Bitcoin vehicle. This definitely is possible. So anyway, we'll watch this carefully. Thank you as well, B-Man, for coming. Now, let's look at the ETFs as well real quick. You can see they're creeping back up to $15 billion in net. And I'll break down kind of the net flow and why that's so important as well in a few minutes. And yesterday, 1,186 Bitcoin were taken from the system, of which Mr100 just bought 810 today. So it is, again, Bitcoin is very scarce, but we'll see how popular it is as well in a couple of slides. So that is the system. Now, this is a cool chart from Check on Chain, Checkmatey. You can see here a couple of things. One is the total realized cap change, the capital inflows into Bitcoin, the ETF inflows and how big they were. The pink is the grayscale outflows. So you can see that the ETF inflows far exceeded the GBTC outflows. In fact, if you look at GBTC versus Blackrock, they were mirroring each other for a while. But then you have other players like Ark and Fidelity, Bitwise, all stacking as well. And then the most important thing is this kind of like, I call it the iceberg where the majority is under the surface. The long-term holder spending is there. So psychologically, I always say every seller has a price, every asset has a buyer, etc. When you look at all the people, say in the last Bitcoin bull run, who wanted to take lifestyle chips and were expecting $100,000 in the year 2021, we didn't get there because of frauds and all that type of crap that are out there in the space. They didn't get a chance to take those lifestyle chips. So as soon as we saw an all-time high, I think that triggered a sentiment in people's heads. It's like, okay, I want that car. I need that house. I need to pay for my kids' education. I want that vacation of a lifetime. I want this, whatever it is. Sail around the world with Starlink on a boat. Yeah, that'd be fun. Anyway, that's probably what happened. Now, getting back to this chart, you'll see as well the blue iceberg under the water. They stopped spending. Those that wanted to spend, spent. And now we're beginning to creep in. We don't have the second demand wave yet, but it's beginning to creep in. And I anticipate it will start creeping in very soon, either after the summer or after the middle of July. So somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks to go. And I keep kind of pushing it out. 90 days after the halving is a critical time. That's when things really start going bonkers. The miner capitulation is over. Even yesterday, I proved that the miner selling has slowed down. So all this stuff is painting a good picture for maybe a second wave coming in. So we'll watch this very carefully. A quick view of the actual ETFs. Beautiful chart from, what are they called? I got to get the name of this firm right. I want to give credit where credit is due. The Far Side. Yes, it's the Far Side. The Far Side investors put this together. And gray is the bleed at a grayscale. You can see the big Blackrock. Good choice of color, by the way, because I can see black. Green is Fidelity. So black and green are huge. The rest are kind of crumbs. So that is really where we are. And again, these ETFs have had a huge impact on the space, and I believe the second wave is coming. Now, another piece from Checkmatey. is volatility is quiet. I did cover volatility as well this week, and it talks about how Bitcoin volatility is at depressed levels alongside sideways chopification for the summer doldrums after having, which has always been the case, and it has preceded always a rapid price appreciation. So the question is, will we get that? Bitcoin's harder than ever before. It's a bona fide asset. There's more money coming into it than ever before. There's more buyers, and we're still very early, very early. And just to think, just for a second, going back to this fella, like he buys 10% of the next 4 years of issuance in a few months with 2.5% of his net worth. Those numbers are just crazy. Can you imagine if 10 billionaires decide to stack? Woohoo, that'll be a party. Anyway, speaking of hardness too, a quick refresher on how hard Bitcoin is. This is the Bitcoin HODL waves from Hive and Bitcoin Magazine by the numbers. Over 60% of all Bitcoin supply has not moved in over 1 year. Also, only 10% has moved in the last 3 to 6 months. So again, it's not like there's a lot available for sale. We did see, just to bring that back, the lower blue iceberg piece here, long-term holders did sell, but then they stopped. And that's important. So big transition. And I still maintain my theory that the long-term holders, many of them, maybe some were lifestyle chips, but I think others were moving to ETFs for safety. They didn't trust themselves with their own keys anymore. So we'll see where this goes. And speaking of miners and capitulation, their selling has slowed down dramatically. I proved that yesterday. And we have now seen miner capitulation levels comparable to December 2022. And that was the FTX bottom. That's when everybody was just fighting for survival. It was about survival. So you sell whatever isn't nailed to the floor. And that's what happened in December 2022. That's when we were running into burning buildings. I'll talk about another thing we were buying back at that time too. Very scary time for many, but when you've been around for a long time, nothing really scares you anymore. So that was the Bitcoin bottom. Now we're at the current drawdown after halving, and the true hash rate is down 7.6%. Biggest drop, again, since December 2022. The shakeout for the mining ecosystem is critical before we can advance forward, and that point is coming real soon, mark my words. There is one problem, however. Nobody is interested. This is the Google Trends search term Bitcoin over the last 3-4 years. You can see here, it is still very low. Nobody is opening up their Google, or perhaps nobody uses Google anymore too. That's also possible. They might be going straight to ChatGPT and asking that question there instead of Google Trends. We don't know. Anyway, it's fun to look at. Now let's get into some of the other crazy news for the week. A lot of people were hoping Bitcoin would be mentioned at the debate, and it didn't. So they were mum on the debate topic for Bitcoin, which disappointed a lot of Bitcoiners, but thank you, Dr. Solskjaer. But I think it's good because you don't want to blow all your gunpowder at once. You want to save some dry powder. So I think if there is a next debate, I think it'll be brought up then for sure. So I think it was a good strategic move. Also this week, we had the fear again, the latest Mt. Gox scare. And Bitcoin took a price this week, the hit this week, even though it's up for the week despite taking this hit. This is interesting. On Monday, Mt. Gox, the defunct business exchange, announced it would begin repaying $9 billion in Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash to creditors starting in July. And the selling pressure, I think we dipped as low as 58.8, 58.6 this week. Also, the U.S. government sold about 3,900 Bitcoin. Germany sold about $60 million worth. I can't remember how many Bitcoin that was. Call it 1,000 Bitcoin or so. Again, it was, let's call that 3 kicks in the teeth. And Bitcoin is still flat. So that is why I'm very optimistic. Miner selling has slowed down. We had a lot of government selling. We have the Mt. Gox fear. Will the Mt. Gox dump be heavy? No, I don't think it will be as much as people fear. So that's what happened. And there is another piece of bad news. And I won't sugarcoat things. But the Motley Fool came out. This is probably the most frightening thing I've seen all year. Their prediction is Bitcoin will soar in 2025. They're always wrong. So this is or a ruh-roh moment. So hoping that was a typo and they got the words soar and tank confused. But we'll watch this carefully. Anyway, Peter Thiel came out with a funny statement as well. It's all up in the news. When people in the FBI tell me that they'd much rather have criminals use Bitcoin than $100 bills, it suggests that maybe it's not quite working the way it was supposed to. So it's kind of a bit of a tongue-in-cheek statement. I thought it was funny because if you ask some political players who will remain nameless, oh, it's used by drug dealers and stuff like that and criminals. Yeah, no, that's the FBI want Bitcoin to be used by these people so they can catch them. But anyway, let's go. Now, speaking of some macro stuff too, this is from Dan Tapiero, who is an OG in the Bitcoin space. And he talks about the yen being super weak. The yen is absolutely cascading out of control. And that should help drive interest into Bitcoin, Ethereum, digital assets. And he just got back from Tokyo, met with a bunch of institutions, and the current exposure there is zero or near zero, with the exception of Metaplex, who have started doing the MicroStrategy strategy, like Semler in Santa Clara in California. More of this is coming. But when your fiat economy collapses, you should be just dropping everything and running headlong into Bitcoin to save yourself. It's your life raft. Let's switch gears and talk about a bit of crypto, and then we get into some stock news as well. This is the Layer 1, L, and Layer 2 summary for the week. So TVL for the week, Binance wins, stablecoin volume, Solana wins, weekly commits, Cosmos wins, and the weekly active developers, Cosmos wins as well. And daily active activity, Binance wins, and daily transactions, Optimism wins. And we'll talk more about daily transactions in a minute, because what these are, again, a reminder, people get confused sometimes, it's week over week change is what I call out. So we can monitor exactly which chains are becoming more adopted, doing more stablecoin volume, getting more TVL, more users, more transactions, week to week, and also month to month, year to year, so you can see it. Let's look at, this is interesting, SOL, TON, and TRON won the week. Solana up 4% for the week, TON up 4.7% for the week, and TRON up 4.2% for the week. All these three chains, by the way, have one thing in common. Adoption. Okay? Metcalfe's law. So when we see things slowing down, it's not a good sign. When we see things growing, it's a very good sign. Speaking of adoption, this is TON, who's the Telegram Open Network. I've been talking a bit about this for a while now. I do not own it. I tend to have much more conviction in fewer names, but it is interesting. And let's start with the history. So it was originally developed by Telegram. It's a messenger app, if you're not familiar, but it has had some legal issues with the SEC, and Telegram had to step away from the project. But now all of a sudden it's becoming hot again. But this is a cool chart. This is the number of TON holders. It's now about 36 million addresses with a balance greater than zero. And to put that in perspective, Bitcoin has 52 million addresses. TON is not far behind Bitcoin non-zero addresses. I think that's fascinating. So again, I believe in Metcalfe's law. The more users on a network, the more activity, the more value. So watch this space carefully. And the Ethereum ETF is coming on July 8th, according to Wu Blockchain, citing people familiar with the matter. And the issuer has been asked to process the comments and resubmit by July 8th. And then maybe one more round of filings, and maybe it's all complete. And then it'll begin trading. Some people thought it would happen on Tuesday. It may still happen on Tuesday, but it'll probably take another week or so for it to come out. And that will also help float all the crypto boats. But there's interesting other ETF news too that happened this week. We didn't get one, but we got two ETF filings for Solana hit. We had Van Eck first, and the next day, 21 shares. And a lot of people think under the Biden-Gary Gensler administration, they are doomed, but there's a small chance that they may not be. Also, the deadline for expiry of these ETF filings will go out beyond the end of the term. We don't know who the new president will be or which regime will be in place, but it'll be interesting to watch. So it's not in doubt. And then this other crazy stuff happened too. I tweeted this late last night. Shout out to Marty Party. Some people believe a Solana ETF is not possible without a regime change, but some people assign a 25% chance that maybe it could be. But what's interesting too is, rumor has it from Gary Cardone, he believes that Ark Funds, Cathie Wood, passes on the ETH ETF and is solely pursuing the Solana ETF. They are kind of going straight, like leapfrogging from Bitcoin straight to Solana. And remember, as I've covered as well previously this week in the SOL video, that Solana is a very small asset, and the impact of ETFs and SOL are huge, extremely large, especially if the flows match that of the Ethereum ETF. But again, I thought that was interesting for Cathie Wood to skip ETH and go straight to SOL. So they wouldn't waste their time if they didn't think there was a chance of it happening. And then enter this. Eric Balchunas comes out, and there's a lot of rumors flying around that there could be an SEC head change to help the Democrats get ahead in this election. We don't know if this is going to happen, but many believe there is a chance it could still happen because, XRP was not deemed a security under the U.S. courts. Eric Balchunas reported saying that a new SEC chair could be bubbling in, like Hester Pierce, and she is very favored by us because she has a favorable stance on crypto, and that could fast track the approval of a Solana ETF. And Eric Balchunas currently gives it a 25% chance of approval this year, so probably 2025. But that would be fine. I'd rather things like Fire Dancer to hit the market first before we jump into the ETF stuff. Patience is sometimes required in this game. And per altcoin investing picks, top dog per altcoin investing picks is Solana, 800% in the last 1 year. AI is the number 2 hot sector, 400%. DPIN number 3, about 250%. By the way, AI, DPIN, tokenization are all things that I believe in, as well as SCP, smart contract platforms, and DeFi. DeFi hasn't done too well, though, year to date. We'll talk a bit about that as well. But if you look at the performance as well down the line of Bitcoin versus Ethereum, this is why we play altcoins, because they run faster. Smaller assets are faster horses. Now, let's look at some other statistics you've probably never seen before. This is the new users per chain per day. And the top 3, I can see purple is Solana. Ethereum is that light blue color. And guess what that dark blue is? That's Base from Coinbase. And the highest adoption is Solana, with on average about 14,000 new crypto users per day. Number 2 is Base, with about 9,000 crypto users per day. And number 3 is Ethereum, with about 7,000 new users per day. But this gets interesting because guess what? Coinbase is partnering with Stripe, and Stripe is the machine that powers all e-commerce on the internet, and they will be adding support for Base to Stripe stablecoin payments. Now, Stripe has been very cautious with crypto payments because they didn't want to upset their business or get into any type of regulatory scrutiny. Now they're like, screw this, let's go do this with Base from Coinbase, and let's offer payments. Now, Coinbase wallet users can buy crypto with credit cards or Apple Pay inside the wallet via Stripe. And in April, Stripe originally announced, I think, the return to crypto after a 6-year hiatus. And now they're really rolling out a lot more activity. This is also interesting because I think after the Blinks announcement, I made an entire video on it earlier this week, it makes organizations like Stripe stand to attention. If Solana can empower e-commerce through a wallet with a simple blockchain URL, that strikes fear in the heart of people like Stripe. I guess. I would. If I was running Stripe and I saw that Blinks announcement, I'd be pretty nervous. Let's talk about transactions. We have one chain, that's the green one. They just hit a new all-time high in transactions. It's called Solana. 42.9 million transactions yesterday. The second highest chain for transactions is TON Coin with 4.8 million. So Solana still has 10x more, but TON is really coming up the charts. And you compare that to monsters that have been around for a long time. Cardano, 60,000. Polkadot, 38,000. Stack, 7,000. Phantom had a big uptick in transactions up to 284K. But still, you can see one horse is running away with it all. And in fact, another interesting stat is SOL does 40 times the number of transactions, 40 times that Ethereum does. And it trades at a fraction of the market cap. Speaking of as well, DeFi. I thought this was another very interesting statistic. DEX volume is nearly all on Solana's Radium platform in the month of June this year. And the month isn't even over yet. Blue is Radium. Green is Uniswap. The rest you can forget about. As usual, I always say winner takes most. It's the way of the universe. Can you see any proof that they don't? Anyway, interesting to see. Speaking of the SEC as well, they did rock a little bit. These two names, Rocketpool and Lido. SEC filed lawsuits against Consensus and the company behind popular crypto wallet MetaMask. They alleged Lido and Rocketpool staking programs are securities and that Consensus has not been engaging in unregistered offer and sale of securities by participating in the distribution of these staking programs. Yada, yada, yada. SEC still fighting crypto. And this is probably why, as I spoke earlier, there could be a regime change because it's a bad look to be forever fighting crypto and then losing in court and fighting crypto and losing in court. And then yesterday I covered another video. The Chevron impact is massive. They can no longer point back to 1930s regulation about securities and say, well, digital assets is covered under this from 100 years ago. No, dead. Okay. Solo YOLO, thank you for coming as well. Sorry, a lot to get through today. So, one thing I did want to say here, what was interesting about Rocketpool and Lido, Rocketpool didn't take anywhere near the hit that Lido did. Rocketpool fell about 7%. Lido fell nearly 20%. So if you hold either, I don't know why. I don't hold either. I don't look at those things. And also another thing to be aware of is beware of Blast. Blast went bust this week after its phase 1 airdrop failed to reach anywhere close to expectations. The airdrop took place 2 days ago, June 26th or 27th, distributed 17 billion Blast tokens, representing 17% of total supply. And this is the team, I think, behind the NFT marketplace called Blur. But what's interesting, too, is what Christian2022.eth said. So I deposited over 50 million on Blast, and I got a 100K airdrop on TGE. Now, I'm pretty sure Blast L2 is a scam project, and Pac-Man Blur is a serial rug entrepreneur. Never blocked anyone on crypto Twitter before, but he made it. I felt so ashamed to trust him before. Anyway, just be careful out there. Remember, 99% of all crypto is a scam. Be very careful. Very careful indeed. Let's look at the stocks this week. Interesting thing to point out as well. We are halfway through the year. The stock market closed yesterday, and that was the 6 month halfway through the actual market. Super Soul Man, thank you for coming. What you can point out here very clearly, as we've been talking about for a long time, the winners are still, the AI companies, TSM, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Apple, etc. But let's look at what has happened year to date, the first 6 months. Okay, half the year is gone. Again, a lot of green, but some crazy green. NVIDIA, 149.47%. Microsoft, 18%. Apple, 9%. Google, 30%. Meta, 42%. Amazon, 27%. Tesla, down 20%. Which is both, for some people, it could be vexing, but for others it's a dream, because what I've been doing is rotating I had Meta, I had Google, I've sold 80% of my NVIDIA already, 20% left, and rotating it into the cheaper horse, let's call it. It's definitely not a fast horse, but that tipping point is coming. And analysts, new analysts that never even followed Tesla before, are coming out of the woodwork and upgrading them. Because you know why? They follow AI companies. The traditional analysts that followed Tesla were car analysts. The game is slowly changing. Tesla is the biggest AI company on the planet, the most real-world AI and baby AGI that no other organization on the planet has. So let's wait for the money machine to come. I don't know if it's going to happen in 6 months or a year or 18 months, but I promise you, by the end of 2025, things will be very different. Now, there was a lot of shout out to Mopbots. If you're there, I haven't seen you. Hey, Sean Donnelly and TND Tesla, thank you for being here. There was a bit of a scare late Friday with MicroStrategy, and I addressed it on Patreon, but why did MicroStrategy tank late Friday? I was asking, what happened? By the way, MicroStrategy is at $1,330 earlier in the week when Bitcoin tanked to about 58,600. So it's still above where it was back earlier in the week. Actually, you can see the buy signal there on, what would that be, Monday, Tuesday? I think it was Monday when it did hit. Now, MicroStrategy did experience that dip, and it's probably, I can't prove it, but a couple of good things happened. One, MicroStrategy was added to the Russell 2000 index. No, Russell 1000 index. So it meant it was leaving the Russell 2000 index. So there is some rebalancing happening that probably happened late on Friday because that was the date of the transaction change, June 28th. They have to leave one index and go into another. So I do believe it'll rebound after this rebalancing. And the Russell 1000 will buy, Russell 2000 already dumped, and that could have a temporary effect on the stock. So, but what's even more interesting is this chart. This shows you the amount of Bitcoin you get per MicroStrategy share. And I thought it would be interesting to share where we are now, because you are now getting more Bitcoin per share than ever in the history of MicroStrategy. That is kind of interesting. And again, MicroStrategy got promoted to the Russell 1000. It also got added to the MSCI index as well a few weeks ago. And fun fact, this is interesting. Well, two fun facts. One, it now, if you have 76 shares of MicroStrategy, you got one whole Bitcoin. But the funniest thing, which is really bonkers, is during the bear market, you could buy MicroStrategy for $160. I think it even fell a little bit below $160 at one stage. And if you calculate the amount you need for one whole coin, you could have bought a whole Bitcoin in MicroStrategy for just $12,000, whereas the price of Bitcoin only fell to $15,500. That's just a little bit of historic arbitrage news for MicroStrategy. And sadly, this was brought to my attention by the All In Pod. Great show, by the way. I watched it late last night, winding down. Actually, if you're trying to wind down, don't watch this show. It'll wind you up. But it's really good. These guys are brilliant. Now, they talked about how software development job postings on Indeed in the United States, how they have tanked. If you see where they are now, they are exactly where they are during the COVID shutdown. I hope I can say that word now. C-19 shutdown. We are right back there. And many believe that artificial intelligence systems are taking its toll on the developer job postings, where they're down from 240 down to about 60. So 75% of job postings have disappeared, and they're back now at levels from the C-19 era where things were literally dead. So, is what we warned about would happen happening already? From this chart, you can pretty much guess yes, perhaps. You know, they say as well that maybe AI won't make a developer a 10x developer, but it'll definitely make a developer 3x faster. So if you have a team in a company of 30 developers, now you only need 10. And that's the scary thing. So everybody just be careful out there. Brush up on your AI skills if you are in the coding sector. And final piece of news, everybody. Nugget number 46. JP Morgan is as bad as Peter Schiff. JP Morgan's Kolonovich warns S&P 500 will plummet 23% by year end. Like literally, for the last 3 or 4 years, they've been saying the exact same thing. The worst hurricane, the worst storm, the worst catastrophe, the worst bloodbath ever. These guys are now like the Motley Fool or Jim Cramer from CNBS. Don't believe what they say. Don't be scared. All right. Look at a guy called Tom Lee from Fundstrat. Listen to him. That's who you need to listen to. Thank you all for coming. I hope you learned something new today. Big recap. And hope you like the show. Bitcoin is still at $61,100. Hasn't gone anywhere. Thank you again, TNT Tesla, Sean Donnelly, and everybody for coming. And B-Man and Susie Gemini. And it's great to see so many powerful ladies of crypto in the space. Thank you all. Have a great Saturday. Bye-bye.